Okay. Okay, everybody. Hi. Sorry for all the technical. I think I'm still trying to see my screen and click around, so that's quite interesting. Hello. Welcome to our second webinar ever from the E-Commerce Foundation. This is zooming in on e-commerce in the Netherlands. We're very happy to have all of you joining us, but we're mostly happy to be introducing to you our two panelists today in our lovely discussion. We've got Mr. Frans Steinman right over here.
Hi, thanks.
Digital and customer engagement strategist at Osudio.
Yep.
Do you want to introduce yourself, or shall I?
Well, very briefly. I'm Frans Steinman, as you said. I'm responsible for digital strategy and customer engagement at Osudio. And Osudio is a full-service digital agency working in most of European countries. And we employ about 220 people in mostly Germany and the Benelux countries. That's it.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And next on the list, we've got Mr. Jesse Veltenbroek, Professor Jesse Veltenbroek, who's also the research director of the E-Commerce Foundation. So he puts the stamp of approval on all the research that I create, come up with, find, however you want to call it, at HVA in Amsterdam. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, very briefly, I'm leading a team at the university of around 15 people who do research in the area of digital commerce and a lot of e-commerce related stuff, but also research in the field of social media, big data analysis, and shopping centers, so how to future-proof shopping centers that are under pressure due to online shopping.
Great, thank you. Thank you both of you for being here. So today we're going to talk a lot about the Netherlands, the Dutch e-commerce market, what you need to do to succeed, and from two really interesting and somewhat different perspectives that will hopefully go well together like two little puzzle pieces, hopefully. So I'm going to kind of switch back and forth. I'll ask Frans some questions, then Jesse some questions. If you have a question, you can always put it in the chat box, and I have some fabulous people behind the screen who are going to tell me what I need to ask our panelists if we have some time. So feel free to do that. Okay, so first we're going to start off with a question for Frans. Okay, so as an American living in the Netherlands, that's me, I quite often see a huge difference in the way customers prefer their experience or their journey in both online and offline shopping and purchasing. So what would you say is specific or unique to Dutch online consumers regarding their customer experience or journey? And I guess if there's nothing, maybe what marks them as very unique or specific in this market in comparison to other European markets?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would almost ask you a question in return and say, what makes an American consumer unique? But I mean, that's another topic. I can't judge for the US market, but I think looking at it from a Dutch perspective, because I'm Dutch, we tend to be kind of, let's say, direct and very easily distracted by things we don't care about. So I would say maybe Dutch people are a bit more easily, let's say, distracted and impatient to get to their particular objective they want to achieve. But I'm not sure. This is looking at it from a Dutch perspective. I'm not sure if Americans and Dutch are very different in their behavior from a digital point of view. I'm not sure. But maybe Jesse has a different view on this, but I'm a bit doubtful about this. Yeah.
What makes the Dutch unique in the online space, would you say?
Well, make the Dutch unique. So I think in general, consumers all around the world are to some extent alike, of course. But of course, there are also some cultural differences and some differences in preferences. For example, if you look to trust and the use of trust marks, I think we are one of the top countries in the world actually with the use of trust marks. So I think we're the number one country with the most trust marks in the world. And I'm not saying that all those trust marks are effective, but at least that's an issue. And if you go to Eastern Europe, for example, there are no trust marks at all, and people actually distrust anything, even a trust mark. So there's a big difference in that respect. Okay. But also there are things like our preferences for payment. So we have this system here, the Netherlands called Ideal, and that's the main way in which people want to buy things online. So to pay it online. And also, how do you want to have it delivered? I think home delivery is really popular in Holland. So almost every order people want to have delivered at their home. So
whole country, yeah?
Whole country, yeah. But these are things that people really love, and when it comes to online shopping, I think. And that's not always the same in other countries. So.
Are you also referring to thuiswinkel.org as a kind of a trust thingy for consumers?
Well, the Thuiswinkel Waarborg is of course the trust mark of this organization, and I think that's a very popular, is a popular trust mark in the Netherlands. But also we have a dozen other trust marks that are being used by online shops. Some of them are more trustworthy, some of them are less trustworthy. But in essence, I think in our online culture or culture of online ordering, trust is an issue, and web shops use it, and consumers also look at it.
And it seems also like convenience, because I know a lot of my Dutch friends also, they really sort of expect their delivery the next day, because it is such a small country as well. If you order, same day, absolutely, because it is domestic. If it's a domestic purchase, they really kind of feel like, okay. Whereas in America, oh my goodness, you're lucky if you get it in a week. If that, it seems a bit, we're really lagging behind there, but it's such a large.
Yeah, we were really used, especially the last years, to have our products delivered very fast to our homes. So indeed, even the same day is now becoming more popular, but even Sunday delivery is also something we do here. Or that you can fix a certain time slot that you want for delivery.
So actually, okay, so that kind of leads me into my next question for Jesse, actually. You and I were chatting the other day in the office about some of the implications of culture on e-commerce acceptance, behavior. You already brought up trust and some of these preferences as well. And I'm wondering if we can sort of have an open answer for what we already talked a bit about culture. You said we're very direct and efficient and all that. Can you give us something else that makes the Dutch, maybe just in comparison to other European countries, very unique culturally in their acceptance of e-commerce, how they do e-commerce, how they participate? How much of a role does culture play in that space?
I think culture is very important, but it's also very difficult to grasp to some extent. As I already said, trust is an issue, and the way what trust is different for every country. For example, if you go to Belgium, they read more the terms and conditions when they go to a web shop, or we don't in the Netherlands. And at least I don't, but a lot of people also don't do that. They look to other trust factors like trust marks, but also reviews, things like that. And whether they have the right payment methods. So trust in Netherlands is a bit different than it's in some other countries where they use other features in that respect. So so there are some things that are different in preferences, for example, and also the wording is of course very different. How you approach your customer as a web shop in the Netherlands. As compared to another country, for example.
Right, like the language and...
Yeah, but also the type of wording you use, or the type of images you use. There are noticeable differences.
Okay. And with that said, for France, I think this might be a good question for you. What would you say are the top 3 points to consider regarding Dutch consumers and their preferences? So for a retailer who wants to really succeed in the Dutch market, what are the top 3 things regarding consumer preference and behavior that they should really be investing in or focusing in on and ensuring they meet?
I hate to make this a theoretical exercise, right? So I always try to pick practical examples, right? So I think, in my view, a real good Dutch example is Coolblue. Maybe you know, I mean, these guys, the last 4 or 5 years, they managed, in a market which is, let's say, very competitive, they managed to get a market share which is substantial, and their revenues last year went through the 1 billion euros roof. So these guys are very successful. And that's one of the main reasons, is that they take the customer as a starting point always. So they do kind of a reverse engineering. They take the customer first, and then they start thinking about the kind of service level these customers expect. And one of the most simple examples in my view is that they started, I think, 8 months ago, with the delivery at home. So you order your washing machine or your dryer, so the web shop experience is pretty good. I would say at Coolblue, it's very easy to navigate and find your way. But the other thing they just simply did is deliver it at home at a convenient time for the consumer when they are at home, and it's delivered even at the 3rd or the 4th floor. And they only leave when it's working, up and running, and the consumer says, I'm happy, bye-bye. So as a practical example, in my view, Coolblue is really, really customer focused, taking the customer as a central point, like Amazon are doing in the US. It's customer focused all the way. It's a great example.
Okay, so focusing on that, on what the consumer wants, which seems to be easy.
And they eliminate all uncertainty. So when I've ordered, I get a notification that everything is fine. When they are about to, they're in the they're near my home, I get an SMS on my phone. They're almost here. So I really can track the full process from pushing the button to do the order to the final delivery at my home, and that really. That really solves something for me. So
what I also like a lot about them is that the profits they make, which are still not very substantial, but the profitability they make is being reinvested in all kinds of new initiatives and ideas. So they're really, it's a bit like Amazon. I'm not comparing them in all ways, but they have a kind of the same approach towards customer centricity. Yeah, it's very good.
Okay, so that's really what you focus on.
And also I think what's important, especially, I'm not sure it's typical for Dutch people, but we also still like stores, and also we like companies, online companies that have stores. That also builds trust. So, and that's also the case of Coolblue. They already had it figured out, I think, 9 or 10 years ago. So they were one of the large websites that was first to start with physical shops, and that really helped for that business model to enhance trust. And nowadays you see that a lot of other web shops are also moving this direction.
So that omni-channel.
And what we see, I mean, we've done some research about web shops that went offline with physical stores, and a lot of them reported that they had an increase in turnover with 20 or 30% because of opening physical stores, because you can enhance trust, you tap into a new target group, so you get a lot more visibility, your service level is going up, things like that. So.
And they see people in a store, actual Coolblue people, employees, and at the end, a consumer wants to see a face. So rather than making a call with a call center, they call it a service center. But most of the time, it's like building a brick wall to keep consumers away from your company. But they are having these stores where you get excellent service, and you can see the face behind the Coolblue label, which is very good.
So that's also what I think is typical about Dutch people. If there's a problem, they want to see a real face and say, I have a problem, solve it for me. We don't want to do that.
So it seems like that also, it really instills that trust, because knowing that you have a place to go to and say, hey, this isn't working, I want a refund. The Dutch really like to know that.
In general, of course, there are a lot of Dutch people.
Someone's going to send an angry letter. I'm Dutch, and that's not true. But it also seems like that would, that seems though that it would make it sometimes a bit difficult for SMEs, for really small to medium-sized companies who they don't have the capital to be able to open up a physical store, but they do want to sell online. And I know that we didn't really talk about this before, but if you have any suggestions, I think, for smaller, medium-sized.
I think I'm disagreeing with you on that. I think there are a lot of potential for SMEs, so for medium-sized web shops also to open physical stores. And we've seen a lot of examples of stores doing that. And they also reported 20%, 30%, 40% increase in revenue. If you are too small to sustain a physical store because it will cost you some money, then there are also other options. So you can have a pop-up store. So you have a temporary store for a couple of weeks or a couple of months per year at different locations, or you have a sort of shop-in-shop concept. So you rent shelf space at another store and also get your brand out there. So there are a lot of opportunities to go physical even without having your own store.
Yeah, and adding to that, I mean, Amazon is a good example again, and it's not being misused a lot, but the Amazon Web Services, where you can use their platform to enter the market digitally, it's a great example, which I think in the Netherlands is not happening that much, I think. Yes, I mean, there's not many small SME companies who are going to a platform which is being serviced by, for instance, because Amazon are not really dominantly present here. But do you have examples of SMEs that are using a platform to go digital?
Well, what you see now is the marketplaces that are on the rise. Of course, BOL.com is, of course, used to be a big retailer, but now it's also a marketplace. You see a lot of smaller web shops and smaller training companies using this marketplace to sell stuff, and they do it very successfully. And I think in the coming 2 years, or maybe next year already, I think more than half the turnover of BOL.com will come from this marketplace. So that's really on the rise. And apart from BOL.com, we use other marketplaces like Marktplaats.nl, which is part of eBay, or we go to Germany like Amazon.de. So I think the marketplaces open up a lot of opportunities for the smaller web shops to have access to a bigger market, to enhance trust, because they can use the big brand that is already trustworthy in itself.
Yeah.
So there's really a potential for them, and we see a positive trend that more and more SMEs are using these kinds of e-commerce platforms.
And they could use that to sort of also grow into something where they might be able to then have a physical store, let's say, as well. Maybe they can also use it in the meantime before they have a physical store. They can sell on Amazon, let's say, and then when they get to that point.
I think for a small company, especially when you are a store-based company and you want to sell online, and you don't have this digital culture, digital DNA, it's very difficult to compete online and to are part of the game. And in that respect, it can be very helpful to go to a marketplace, because that really serves you. You don't need to know that much about selling online. So there are opportunities, especially for store-based companies that want to go online.
Just as an add-on to that, is that as Osudio, we implement all kinds of e-commerce platforms for SMEs, but also, I would say, for the big brands. But most of the time, it's highly underestimated what the requirements are in terms of organizational planning, resources needed to get this digital platform up and running and keep it at a certain level. So organizational impact of going digital is highly underestimated. So we find a lot.
It's easier for a web shop to go physical than for a physical store to go digital.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, and okay, so sort of continuing on with that train of thinking, and you actually brought up Amazon, because we don't have Amazon here in the Netherlands. We just have the German that we can go to German.
Tiny Dutch website.
This is why Jesse is always around when I need him to be, so that he can say, no, that's not right, Sarah.
If you're interested in the ebooks or the Kindle, you can buy it.
Okay. But products, not yet, right? No. Okay. So, all right. Okay. Point taken. But okay, so yes, I can ask you this as well. Regarding cross-border online shopping and purchasing, what are some Dutch consumer behaviors and preferences for international web shops that you see?
Well, I must say, in general, Dutch people are really stuck to the domestic market. They love to shop in Holland, and that's also because it's a very mature market. We have very good companies here. We have big companies here. People are, they rely on them. They are used to them, to using them. So there's not really big need for going across the borders. So in countries like the Netherlands, but also Germany and Poland, a lot of consumers stick with purchasing within the home country, as compared to customers from smaller countries like Ireland, Luxembourg, Cyprus, where the domestic market is very small, so they need to go abroad to buy things. And here that's not the case. So I think we only go abroad, in general, when there's really a need. So you can't buy the stuff in Holland, or you want things very, very cheap from China, for example. Then we do it. But I think there's a strong preference, in general, to buy within our home country.
Local for local. Yeah, in Germany, Germany is saying we do a lot of business in Germany as well. Germans typically buy German. And not only, let's say, from a German website, but also German products. So, for instance, software platforms that we implement most of the time in Germany, it's either SAP or another local piece of technology that they trust. It's German for German, local for local. That's a typical European thing in most countries, I would say.
Yeah, apart from the ones that have a smaller.
Unless you're forced to go abroad.
Yeah, I noticed that in Switzerland as well. It's the same. They tend to go to Germany and France and Italy as well. It's quite
and don't underestimate the language. Germans speak German. French speak. They still stick to their local language.
Right.
And Dutch is kind of. We discussed this earlier.
Yes.
You and I. Dutch is a hard language to learn to speak.
And most it is hard. English. Yes. Trust me, it's hard.
But most of us speak English anyway. So for you as an American, it's easier to live and order stuff here because we all understand and speak English pretty well. Yeah.
So if you do have a cross-border shop, say that you are in Germany or in France, and you want to sell in the Netherlands, how would you convince Dutch shoppers then? Would it be putting it in Dutch, or would it be ensuring it's in English at least, or having a .nl?
I think the main mantra is localize. So make a local Dutch web shop in a good language. You use all the local trust marks, use the local payment methods.
And avoid grammatical shit. Make sure that the Dutch language is written and spelled correctly. Sometimes you see a Google translation, And it doesn't make sense. You know, it's funny.
I do notice that sometimes into English, and I feel
funny.
Have Dutch phone numbers, things like that.
Yeah.
If you look to a company like Zalando, they are doing very well with their website in Holland. And I've asked consumers in the Netherlands the question, where is Zalando based? Is it a Dutch company or a foreign company? And a lot of people say it's a Dutch company. And then I said, well, Zalando's doing a good job with localization. And that's actually what I mean. You need to localize in such a way that people think that you are Dutch.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a critical thing.
It's very well taken. So if a Dutch consumer were to shop at a cross-border shop, what would you say would be the first country they would go to?
That's the countries that are on the mental map of people. So I think it's in Belgium, of course, because of the language, and Germany, of course, is pretty culturally is related, and the UK. These are the biggest ones. And China for the cheap stuff. We like cheap stuff as well.
Yeah, we are critical on price.
Yeah, nobody said that the Dutch preference is to pay less, and I thought that was going to be numero uno.
We try to go cheap.
Yeah,
generic remark, by the way, general remark, but we try to go cheap.
If we can get a bargain, then we're happy to wait 30 days to get it.
We are sensitive for bargains. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next question, actually, I should put up this graph. I noticed hopefully this works well in a way that I can, sorry everybody, make it work without, okay. Hopefully everybody can see that, maybe. Let me just move it back over a little. Okay, actually we have a question. We have a question from the audience. This is for,
very good question.
We're all sort of like, what is this thing? Okay.
Yeah,
is platformization a threat or an opportunity for retailers?
Interesting. Interesting. You go first.
Yeah. That's so polite.
No, I got a very outspoken opinion on this, so I have
actually the answer is both. Both. So on the one hand, it offers a lot of opportunities. If you're not experienced in selling online, it's an easy way to sell online. It's an easy way to explore a new market which you're not familiar with, to see whether your products are of interest for this new target group, consumers from other countries. So it's a very easy, low-key way of selling online.
Less risky, would you say?
It's less risky, less investment involved, everything is already covered. You make use of a trustworthy brand, logistics is taken care of, payment is taken care of, so that's everything is fine. Having said that, and you can earn a lot of money with it, so that's also fine.
As a service provider, you mean?
Well, you can get some turnover out of it. So that's fine, you can earn a lot of turnover out of it. However, the downside is, I think, a lot of downside. So it will cost you a lot of margin. So you need to pay a lot for the service. Also, you give away a bit to your customer because you don't have a lot of possibilities to really market your own company. It's all behind the big brand of the platform, and you don't get a lot of customer data back. So in that sense, you get a little less grasp on your own customer. It's not really your customer anymore. The platform is really owning your customer, and there's, I think, the big danger. And you're getting a bit of dependent on the platform. So you get a sort of locked in. And I think there's the danger. I think.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna have to play referee. Bring it up.
I'm going to take this now as so this is going to be a bit of a commercial thing because I work for a company that provides customer journey and so we do design, UX, and we try to create an optimum customer experience for each and every one. When you use a platform, you're kind of limited in the options and the possibilities you have. So going really for a specific target audience, or you really want to down drill on personalization, a platform doesn't allow you to do that very well. Yeah. So that's another downside thing, in my opinion. If you use a platform, you cannot go for the personalization, the personal customer experience people expect you to provide. Yeah. And that's for me, that's the biggest downside because we always think customer first. We really take an outside-in approach.
Right.
So, and the user experience, so all the design that's required to make your website, your brand unique, that's a difficult thing when you use a platform.
And I think it's also, you need to make a distinction between shops that don't have a brand and brands.
Yep.
So if you're a big brand, everybody knows your brand, then marketplace is just another channel for you. But if you are an anonymous web shop selling through a platform,
Fine.
it's fine. But you give away your margin, and you don't get back a lot of customer data, and you have limited possibilities to interact with your customer.
There's no feedback loop.
No, and there's the downside for them. So it depends on the type of company you are. What are the threats and the opportunities?
Yeah, sometimes you see that they use that a company wants to introduce a new product. They use platform as a kind of a test.
Yeah.
So they do a trial and they see it fails. They go away without spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
If it's successful, they start their own channel. That's also a reason to use a platform.
Yeah. So if you want to go to Germany, you're a Dutch web shop. Don't start with your own German web shop first, but first go to alpha.de, try it,
try and error,
and then see what products the German people like, see how they respond, and then
it's a bit like lean startup thinking. So start small and try and scale fast if it works. If it doesn't work, go away or pivot. I mean,
so it's a bit less risky. Okay, okay. I'm just gonna double check and make sure I put this up here correctly. Yeah, okay, it looks good, I think. Okay, so the next question I was going to ask is actually for Frans. I was reading some of your articles, and I noticed that one of the articles you wrote about the customer experience, and you quoted a study that said 40%. Yeah, I put the graph there so everybody can see it. 40% of consumers are willing to pay more when they have a good experience. And it seems from this study that the customer experience and journey impacts a lot, including the willingness to be loyal or switch brands. So the question that I have is regarding Dutch online shoppers, what would you say is sort of the road to success for their specific or unique customer experience? What does the perfect customer journey look like for a Dutch online consumer? And in addition to that, what does the perfectly failed consumer journey look like for a Dutch online consumer?
Okay. So that's a lot of questions in one sentence. Shit.
I do that a lot.
So the research is. I think I took it from the Visa or Mastercard or something.
American Express.
Okay, they came up with this. But in the end, you want to when you have a web shop and you do transactions, something was bought. Then there it starts. So there your customer experience starts because the customer expects after-sales service. They want to get information, and this information flow needs to be seamless and without any difficulties, right? Whether it's mobile or whatever. So once you get into this, we call it the loyalty loop. So once you get a satisfied customer and you get after-sales service correctly implemented, and the service you provide after the sale, then loyalty starts growing, and then the revenue starts growing as well. So the customer lifecycle management starts after the first sale. And that's why these figures are, 40%, I'm not sure it's really accurate for the Dutch marketplace. Maybe, yes, you can, let's say, explore a bit on the how it works for the Dutch market. But in general, the loyalty loop, creating loyal customers is the trick that makes the revenue grow.
Yeah, and you think that Dutch consumers also, they really heavily rely on that experience to create that loyalty?
Yeah, I don't think. To be Dutch or I don't think Dutch or German or Americans is the big difference here, but I don't know.
I think that people don't want to pay much extra for experience or service. They just expect it, especially in the Netherlands. So we are really price sensitive in that sense. So yeah, what's the value of service? In the past I've done some research on that, and it was pretty low. I did it for bicycle retailers, for example, and they want to add value, extra services, but people didn't want to pay much for it.
So they expect it without wanting to pay for it.
Yeah, that's more my opinion. But on the other hand, if you reward your customers and make them feeling that they are meaningful, like Coolblue does, you really are meaningful for them. At least they give you the feeling that you are.
And then they might come back.
And they come back. Exactly. So it's more about creating loyal customers, I think, than trying to say we have the best service and you need to pay for this. I think that's not the way.
So just by giving them that customer service and making it, because I've also found that if you work from the other perspective, which is if you have a lot of negative reviews or a lot of people have negative experiences with your company, they will definitely not come back. So I do think that sort of maybe they don't want to pay more for it, but it will affect whether they come back to the store or not, which in a sense is your revenue. So
loyalty means customers coming back to you.
Yeah, for sure.
And that creates more. In the end, it creates more revenues. But I agree with the services thing. It really depends on the kind of business you're in, whether people are willing to pay more or less. I mean, if it's a commodity thing, If you pay an expensive trip to the Far East, and you get a better personal service from a person behind a desk or on a website, which is a personal approach, then you might be easily tempted to buy more, to buy extras for the trip, rather than this service not offered at all.
People don't want to be treated as a number, and they want to be surprised. And if you do that, then you get loyal customers, and they will spend more at your company. So that's the trick, the main trick. But don't say we have a good service and you need to pay for it. That's not the way.
Right. Not for Dutch people, especially, probably.
No, not for Dutch
Probably not for anybody, but definitely not for the Dutch. Yeah. Okay, cool. So next question then I've got for Jesse. You work regularly with quantitative data, as you are a professor.
I love it,
Yeah, he loves it. Having already gleaned quite a bit of qualitative data from France as well about the customer journey and the experience and platforms, what do you think that we're not paying attention to that the data shows to us? What do we need to know that data shows to us that we might not have known it about our customers here in the Netherlands? About if a retailer wants to come to the Netherlands, what does the data tell them that we're not quite touching on? Anything that you think of?
Well, I would like to twist the question a bit, if that's okay with you. I think data is a very hot topic, and I think becoming a data-driven business is very important. I was at a big e-commerce event yesterday, and we had a fantastic keynote from Picnic who told us what they do with big data and with artificial intelligence. And I think that's really the future also for web shops. As a web shop, you have so many data at your disposal, but you can do nice things to see which are your loyal customers, where do they come from, what's the competition doing, and to really make a good proposition. And I still see a lot of companies, even big companies with millions of turnover, are not paying too much attention to all the data they have, and try to use the data to get a better customer proposition. So there's huge potential to unlock for a lot of companies to get a better get more added value for their customers.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of data would you say they need to collect? And maybe you can also answer this partially. What kind of data should they be looking at collecting to better understand their consumers?
Well, it's not only collecting additional data, it's also looking for patterns in the data that you already have, because you already have so many data about customers. And if you analyze the buying patterns and the preferences, and you can are going to cross-sell, for example, give them recommendations using algorithms, artificial intelligence, then you can really enhance your customer experience because you already know so much of your customer. But if you talk with an average web shop, and they don't know that much of the customer, and that's ridiculous because you have all this data.
Yeah.
But it's
There's one interesting thing. We have a partnership with a company called Bloomreach. They were previously known as Hippo. And they have a service platform, it's a digital experience platform. So they collect all the data that Jesse was referring to, and then they identify the trends on a personal level, and then they offer all kinds of services and products related to a specific person that has been visiting the website before. And it's artificial intelligence, so it's kind of a machine learning algorithm which behind it. And that services the person on an individual level much better, which leads to a better conversion rate and in the end higher revenues. That's the idea. Yeah.
Right, and
interesting technology, by the way.
And just overall better customer experience.
For sure.
Yeah, it feels like what Jesse said. They don't want to feel like a number.
Exactly.
They want to feel.
They want to be a person. They want to be identified and recognized as a customer, and wants to be treated as a person, as an individual.
Yeah,
it's a very key element.
Yeah. It seems like it.
But it starts with getting to know your customer, and their data can help.
Yep.
And when you know your customer, you know how to make a personal proposition that doesn't feel like a number.
Yeah, and the technology is there to support it. I mean, this is not something you do manually by using a spreadsheet or something. The technology is there. You implement it on your website, and it gathers the data, and then it automatically gets into a better profile, etc. It's there.
If you ask two companies, how do you analyze your data? I think the majority will say we use Excel.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. That's not the way to analyze your customer.
I was just going to ask, is it something where they should be considering hiring a data analyst, or is this just...
Yeah, that's the job of the future. I mean,
that's for SMEs, I think the small, medium should I hire data? And now they're asking these types of
There's a
questions.
huge demand for people with that profile, and there's a gap because the demand is a lot bigger than the people are ready to do data analysis at companies.
But also, if you really want to move forward to become a digital-driven business, you also on the management level and the board, you need also people with experience with data analysis and big data.
Interesting.
Because you need to change the whole culture of your organization.
Yeah, it seems like it. Actually, it's a really good segue that you brought up technology because my next question on the list actually.
I didn't do it on purpose.
I don't know how you're doing. Yeah, you're nailing. I don't know. I think maybe we actually have a question. I'm not sure. Let's see. Oh, quick question. How marketplaces and online shops adjust their prices? Are they using specific tools to compare and monitor prices?
So,
how are marketplaces and online shops adjusting their prices? Do they use specific tools to compare and monitor prices?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer in general. Of course, there are a lot of tools and interesting tools. I think the future is dynamic pricing, and there aren't that many tools that are really into dynamic pricing. This morning, I talked to a company that offers this for some clients, and it's really amazing what it can do, and it's really integrated with web shops, so they see what the competitors do, and automatically prices on the website can be changed. They can go up or they can go down depending on what your competitor is doing right now.
Real time,
real time,
so within a second.
That's really cool.
So pricing is very important. But I think still a lot more web shops need to take that into consideration to have a good pricing strategy, and not doing it by hand, but also here artificial intelligence and big data can come into play to make that much easier for your company. There are a lot of providers of those tools that can help you as a web shop to adjust your prices quickly. To
type a search thing in Google, and you will find many platforms that are available, but also service providers that help you out in kind of providing professionals to help you implement this.
It also will prevent you from a race to the bottom. It's not about the lowest price. It's about the right price at the right time.
Yeah.
Sounds like Booking.com.
That's like a new slogan.
For example, if your competitors have an out of stock problem, then you can rise your price because you are the only one supplying the product.
So it's not just about pricing. It's also about knowing what's available actually on the market.
Yeah, correctly.
Okay.
Acting accordingly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so also a very good segue into my next question. I'm curious to know what tools and methodologies or technologies, innovations, you would suggest to help retailers, but specifically maybe with this focus on SMEs to understand their consumers. So in the, you can both answer this obviously, but in the next, let's say year, 2 years, 5 years, in the future, you talked about AI. I'm wondering, what do you think is going to be the technology to invest in as an SME to really understand your customer and give them this experience, this not just I'm just a number experience, but a real experience. Yeah. What do you see? I mean, we've got blockchain, we've got virtual reality, we've got everything under the sun, it seems. Well, I say that now, but you know. So what would you say?
I would say a lot of those technologies that you're mentioning, I think they are powered by big data and AI. So things like virtual reality and stuff. And so I think data is really the key at the moment. So you need to make sure that you have your system connected, you have the right tools, analyze the data, and get actionable insights out of it. And with those insights, then you can decide which technologies to use, for example. So it's not about artificial intelligence. It's not about virtual reality or whatever. It's all about knowing what your customer wants and then acting accordingly. As if virtual reality can add something to your company, then you can add it. But first you need to know what your customer wants, and so it starts with data. And I think.
Yeah, there's a need so this is not an answer to your question, but I just want to make a remark here anyway. Is that there's a book published, I think 5 or 6 years ago, called The Intention Economy. Have you heard about it? Mm-hmm. Anyway, what it does, it describes that in the future, and that will be the future within now maybe 3 and 5 years or maybe a little bit later, but the intention economy starts from the principle that the customer who has the intention to buy something can put his question somewhere on a portal, on a website, and then suppliers, vendors, people who sell products and services can offer this particular consumer this product or service. So it turns the whole thing around. So the intention economy starts with the intention you have as a consumer to buy something, could be B2B or B2C, and then all the suppliers that are interested in offering you something, they make the offer. Interesting. And the intention economy, it's an interesting theory and a preview of how the future might look from a consumer perspective. It's nice,
But also, if you look to the developments with Amazon, they are already technological that advanced that they know what you want before you want it yourself.
Scary.
It is scary. There was that, I think I saw it on Facebook. I'm totally outing myself as a millennial here. I saw it somewhere on Facebook that this young woman, her dad found out that she was, he assumed that she was pregnant because she was searching for things that were somehow related to babies. And I just thought, oh wow, okay, I don't know how I feel about that.
This is
like Black Mirror, Twilight Zone, everything is kind of
scary,
it is.
And people have habits, and habits are patterns, and patterns you can find in the data.
They're recognized by the technology. So
but it's that double-edged sword though, because we want that customer experience that is very unique.
Yeah, and then we come back to the point, so don't treat people as a number. So if you found out as a company someone is pregnant, you should go very careful with that, because otherwise, things go wrong.
Of course, Well, and actually, speaking of this, I know that it wasn't something that we talked about, before this, but with the GDPR policies coming up, I'm really curious.
It's not coming up; it's happening.
Well, it is now. It's May,
it's a big
right?
thing,
My goodness, it's already May. I'm really curious to see also how that impacts about online retail in general. Do you have any? I mean, it's kind of an off the wall, but if you have any thoughts on GDPR, you're happy to share.
There's a lot of rules and regulations. Pieces of paper.
What do you think about GDPR? It's a lot of rules.
And I think most companies are struggling with it because from a legal perspective, everybody knows the rules, but how am I going to apply it?
It's not easy.
And the fines are like, I saw 4% of your global revenue. I mean, it can be tens and tens of millions for making one field in a data sheet wrong. I don't know. It's a funny story. I don't know.
I think it will create a lot of new jobs.
That's a very politically
in the legal departments of companies.
Exactly. But do you think it's helpful for consumers to at least feel like we've got some bit of protection? So even though there's this, it's a tough one, right?
I'm a bit cynical here.
Okay, and I feel like we're just gonna cut the webinar up now. That's it, and then we break out and have a little separate conversation.
I think it makes life less nice, because if you need to approve everything up front, with the cookie message, it's crazy. I don't like that as a consumer. So it's the same as happening now with the GDPR. I think.
Lots of rules and regulations developed and thought of by people who they mean well. I mean, in the end, they want to say that privacy and stuff and consumer protection, there should be a kind of template describing this. But the way they're doing it now for SME companies who don't have a legal department, I mean, lawyers will have fun writing all the hours and making the invoices, which will need to be paid anyway. And then that's the first thing. And then the second thing, there will be lawsuits. What do you think will happen? It will take months before anybody a judge will say something about right or wrong or something in between. I don't know.
I think you're right. It sounds like there will be a lot of unintended consequences that might negatively impact some SMEs that maybe unintentionally, they don't maliciously mean to collect the data in a way that is...
Dutch statement, this is an ivory tower shit. I mean, there's a lot of things thought about in an ivory tower, which hasn't been checked in the real world.
We're not sure how it'll play out. But I think the focus on consumer protection is good. Well, let's just hope that in the future we can come up with a way to make it so that
it should be balanced.
Where it's not too much of a burden.
Now it's out of balance. It's too much to the privacy.
Too much Europe.
Too much Europe. And on that note, I think that we're going to have to end the webinar. I feel like before the Dutch government comes in and it's like, we're ending this.
Sorry.
Did either of you have anything else you want to add? My questions are spent, and I think our time is up. But if you would like to add something else about anything, anything?
It was fun. I think we had a very nice discussion. I hope the viewers had as well.
In Dutch we use the word uitsmijter, which is like the final statement. It was a nice conversation, and cool. if possible, I would love to do it another time.
And I would love that too. And if anybody has any questions, burning questions that were not answered, or if you walk away from this and you think, oh, I have a question, feel free to send it to us at the E-Commerce Foundation, and I'll make sure to forward it on to one or both of our lovely panelists. I wish I could thank you with like an applause or something.
Thanks very much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you all in the next webinar, hopefully. Let's make sure that I can end this properly. I never know how to end these things. But okay, bye, Dewey.